Coach, lots of new exciting roster changes. When you look at this team, how do you feel like it's more equipped now for the long haul?
I mean, it's just deep. It's got veterans. It's got firepower in multiple positions. It has some playoff experience on it. And so the city and obviously the coaching staff and the players in the locker room should be incredibly excited. Elton did a great job, and we have the most talent that we've had since I've been here. And, with that comes lofty sort of expectations, as we all should have, and goals that we'll talk about a little bit more clearly later. But it's an exciting day.
Denver Nuggets in town tonight, led by Nikola Jokic, who is a triple-double machine. When you look at guarding him, the defensive plan, what stands out?
Offensive rebounding. I think he really does a great job and has soft hands and, plays with his hands above his head a lot. And so trying to hit him and keep him away from the rim and having our guards contribute. It's just not, left with Joel to make his hits, make his box out. That's the first thing. And the second thing that makes him unique is he's an amazing passer. He can rebound and dribble it out himself and find people, or he can stand in sort of a static half-court game at the top of the key or the elbow, the high post area, and just pick apart a gym with his passing. And he's really emerged to be an NBA all-star and one of the best big men, mostly because of his versatility and his skill set.
Guys, the deadline was as dramatic as it has been ever, with 14 trades, the most in 3 decades. Nearly 2/3 of the league made some kind of move, and 34 players changed teams. And that does not include the buyout to free agent guys who are starting to trickle away from their teams and find new ones. For Sixers general manager Elton Brand, the deadline was a declaration. We're going for it right now. Quote, "I'd be disappointed if we didn't make the Eastern Conference Finals." Understandable. Sixers begin the night 5th in the Eastern Conference. How much better, guys, are they than they were 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago before they brought in Tobias Harris?
I think they're better now from a talent standpoint, but when you look at
Wait, I hear a butt already.
I'm not bought into this, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Because right now, if you look at it from a talent standpoint, if you already had efficiencies with putting Jimmy Butler with the ball club, and then now you add another guy, and Tobias Harris was a first option in Detroit, was a first and secondary option with the Clippers, and then now he's going to need his touches. He's in the contract season. So when you acquire these guys, is it a rental situation or is it a long-term situation? And that's what bothers me with that, because if you look at the cap space, you're pushing 118.
Yep.
And then going to the foreseeable future, if you got Simmons, Embiid, Butler, Harris, that's 130.
Right.
Who the heck is going to be on the bench?
But you're talking about extensions down the line,
I'm
not
talking
just
about
the summer. Yeah.
I'm talking about the big picture. So you're all in on winning now, and then you trade away the future with so many young guys and also Markelle Fultz.
Well, I get that argument. I guess my question would be, what about this team right now for the last 30 games or whatever it is and into the postseason? How much better are the Sixers, in your opinion, than they were
on paper? They're amazing.
That lost in the second round last year.
Just on paper, they're amazing, but you have to think continuity is everything. Chemistry is everything. Understanding place and where you need to be, and what our guys are going to be willing to sacrifice. You already had Embiid talking about he wasn't getting enough touches, he wasn't getting featured. Now you add another guy that needs opportunities, that needs shots.
Right.
So that's what's something that I'm just concerned about, watching them in the chemistry and watching them evolve.
The me's versus we's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I would say Tobias Harris was an all-star this year. Would you?
Yeah.
Would you say he was an all-star this year?
He's on that short
He's not
list.
an all-star.
So, well, I'm saying,
I have the list. He's not on.
I'm saying this from a number standpoint.
He played really well.
There.
He was deserving of an all-star appearance this year. Was snubbed, if you ask me. But now going forward, they have 4 all-stars with Jimmy Butler, Embiid, and Ben Simmons. So now what do I go look at next? What's the problem? Elton Brand just said it publicly. Hey, we should have enough manpower now to compete for the Eastern Conference Finals title. Now I'm looking at who? Coach Brown.
Right.
Where does the coaching aspect come into play? How do you manage these personalities? How do you fit Tobias Harris, let alone Jimmy Butler, who you had some issues with. Let's say it was plain as day that they had trouble fitting Jimmy Butler in this equation. So I'm looking at it now as the coach going forward. I know you're going to have free agency coming up with some decisions to make with Tobias and Jimmy Butler, but then you also have to look at, is this the coach for this team?
It's a fair question. You know, the late game execution against the Celtics in the second round last year was pretty bad, right? I think you'd agree about that. Brett Brown will have something to say about that. He also has some other options in terms of Harris and Butler, who were not on the roster last year, guys who can handle the ball on the perimeter, make plays for themselves, advance the ball when it needs to be advanced, where it got stuck last year. So theoretically, especially when you talk about the starting lineup, Philly's as good as anybody in the East.
Yeah, and I got them going up the ladder right now just off the trade alone. And, they still have to go out there and play games, and we'll see a small sample size of that tonight, and if they can fit in.
How about the depth? Also picked up Jonathan Simmons. James Ennis comes over. Both pretty good wing defender types that they can bring off their bench. How do you feel about the depth of this team right now?
I like the depth, and I'm glad Drew had touched on it. When you're talking about the versatility of this team and the wealth of talent that's assembled, that's in place, all the attention goes on Brett Brown from here going forward. How do you put them in position to be the better version of themselves? You have guys that can isolate, particularly on the left side of the floor, on the right side of the floor. So that's going to give you the necessary space, the real estate for Ben Simmons, who cannot shoot yet, going downhill, getting into the paint, featuring Joel Embiid, and how are you going to manage those personalities in those minutes when it's winning time?
Simmons, to me, is still as big a question mark as anybody on this roster at the end of games, because if he's not handling the ball, where is he? And what do you do with him? He's not spacing the floor, obviously.
And don't sleep on Corey Brewer. I mean, they just signed him, I think, potentially for a second 10-day or maybe for the rest of the season. I don't know. But he's another veteran guy that, they need a shooting. They got in Corey Brewer. So, I mean, him and Jonathan Simmons might be battling it out for some time.